everyone, Zach here. Today I'm going to talk about a quick PowerShell with Ansible tip and how you can leverage a special variable to create structured output. So it's pretty common when folks are transitioning from writing traditional PowerShell scripts to using Ansible to automate their Windows environment to leverage the win_PowerShell module, which effectively just runs your PowerShell scripts or components of those scripts as Ansible tasks against your target hosts. Eventually, I would always recommend that you'll convert those PowerShell scripts into the more purpose-built Ansible modules, but this is a pretty common way to make that transition, and I think there's a nice tip that it's not always called out as obviously as I would expect it to be in the Win PowerShell module documentation. That tip is the Ansible variable, so you can reference it with $Ansible, and it has a few properties that you can set to manage what the results of the PowerShell script that you run actually look like in a playbook run. The thing I'm going to focus on today is the result property. So if you've ever written a custom module, you'll know that the result property is pretty important. It's where you actually provide data back to the task so that if someone registers a variable, the value will get set to the variable they register and they can use it downstream in their playbook. I noted a few other properties here that are important as well, such as changed, so you can actually make your PowerShell script more Ansible, for lack of a better phrase, by setting the changed whether or not you feel like the script made a change, and that will support some of the idempotency that is traditionally available to you when leveraging Ansible. If you go over to the Windows documentation itself, which is linked in the references for this particular module, take a look at the notes section, which it's easy to overlook, but it has some very detailed information about how you can use the different properties of the Ansible variable in your script to control how it behaves in an Ansible environment. So I come back over to my blog post. Here's the example I'm going to be using, where I basically run a task on my domain controller and I connect to a list of servers and get some folder sizes information based off of the shares available on that server itself. So in the playbook run, if I go over to my Ansible controller and the details, if I scroll down here, so I give it a list of servers here. I've got two Winston and Winthrop that I'm going to connect to from my domain controller. And I already went ahead and ran it just to save time. But what you'll notice here is that when I ran my raw PowerShell script, which normally in Ansible, when you run a raw script, you don't get nice responses. You get like the raw standard out or the standard out lines, so basically just split on a new line character. But in this particular case, I actually got a Pythonic list called folder sizes with structured objects that I created in my PowerShell script. So I've got my folder name, I've got my server that folder was found on, the share, as well as the size in megabytes. It says bytes here. These are megabytes that I've used. And if I scroll down, it also ran on my Winthrop host as well. And then if I kept going and I wanted to, I could combine those objects pretty easily, because once I've set that Ansible.result value, I've got Pythonic dictionaries, which are a lot easier to work with than raw standard out. So if you enjoyed that, it was a quick tip, and if you are writing PowerShell scripts and running them via Ansible, I think it's very useful to take advantage of the variable that's there and make your downstream efforts a lot easier. Thanks for listening. Drop a note in the comments if you have any questions for me. Thanks.